Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Mindful LCA. Today we're going to be talking about the book, The Four Agreements. Very
Mm.
powerful book. I read it
Mhm.
once, I listened to it once, and I listened to it a couple of days to prepare for this a couple of days ago. And yeah, it's still fucking amazing. It's still the shit. So
Mhm.
get ready for it. How you doing today?
I'm really tired today. I drove to LA. I flew in from
Mm-hmm.
Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
drove to LA, went to a
Mm-hmm.
concert, and drove back.
Yeah,
So
you
I got
wild.
home like at 4:30. So I'm really tired right now.
Ya no tienes 18. You can't be doing this shit anymore.
I know. I know. This morning I regretted it. Well, I didn't regret it, but um I just how tired I feel. Like you can see my eyes are so poofy. Hopefully.
Yeah, I literally took a nap before we started too because I was fucking tired. Yep. Um,
How are you?
Someone asked me this already, and I answered it, and I thought it would be perfect to bring it. I'm okay. I am in a cycle of healing, and I'm in the part where I need more understanding, more growth. I need to look into myself more because, like, I asked myself, well, why does this thing affect you so much? Why is this bothering you so much? Let's try to figure it out, and I haven't been able to figure it out yet. So I know it's part of the cycle, and but sometimes like it just gets not overwhelming, but I guess you could say that. No, not overwhelming. It just I want to continue to grow, and I know that the pain and understanding and going through that shit is what's necessary. So just continue that cycle. But on the other hand, I'm very happy. The shit with my client is going amazing. He's again making
Good.
great changes. Um,
Good.
like he said some shit that like he healed his own inner child, and like he explained it so nicely that I felt the love that he gave himself on the thing.
Oof.
Like I felt I and I told him, bro, like that's fucking deep. Like I feel it, Like I'm
Mhm.
feeling what you said. So I can imagine that. But yeah,
Good.
that's how I'm kind of feeling this morning. Um so like we said, today we're talking about the four agreements. So the four agreements is a book about finding personal freedom and peace, and it's written by Don Miguel Ruiz. So Don Miguel Ruiz was from the research that I did a little bit on him. He is a Mexican descent, just living a regular life, and then he had a near death experience at some point that
Ah,
led him into that led him into look for more, or that led him to get out of the rat race, whatever you call it, and he started doing the research. Um, and it's based on Toltec like teachings and stuff. So the Toltecs are predecessors of the Aztecs. And when I was reading that, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself a little bit. But they talk about like some of the things they talked about were like philosophical and spiritual work when it comes to balance, like knowing about yourself and like mastering your mind and emotions. And I was like, motherfucker, this is cognitive behavioral therapy. Like this is the shit. So I was like, oh, so this is cool that it was all the way since back then already. Like maybe they didn't call it that, and maybe the framework wasn't there that
mhm.
like they put now. But it's cool to see that our ancestors and this kind of mental health or healing aspect has always been there for a lot of like centuries. Like it's already something that's been explored in that. um so yeah, like that's
Remember?
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was gonna say, like, remember when we had the episode? Was it our second, third episode with
Oh,
um
but Aztec, I know him as Aztec. I forget his name, but he goes by Aztec. That's his artist name.
se llama Raúl, ¿no?
Yeah, there you go. But I just always all my life I've known him as Aztec because that's what he
Okay.
calls himself and shit.
Um, One of the things we had talked about there is the part of like therapy is hours, from Dr. Manuel Samarripa, and
Hmm.
that is one of the things that he talks about how like the talk therapy as we know it it has been in our ancestry, and right now you just like confirmed it, right? Like the Toltec teachings,
Hmm.
it is a lot of mastering, uh, like a lot of like, because I started reading it, I didn't finish it, the book, but the like this part of almost like a higher conscience, like when I started reading it, I was like, oh my god, this sounds what like what healing looks like right now,
Hmm.
with more of like that westernized lens.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so I'll just start. So the four agreements, I'll show you. I'll tell you what they are, and then we can go back and like we go one at a time, right? So the first one is be impeccable with your word. Uh, the second one is don't take anything personally. The third one is don't make assumptions, and the last one is always do your very best, right? So be impeccable with your word. Impeccable means without sin. Once you look at it, so try not to sin um, with our word, right? Because it's so powerful. So he gets. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a step. The first part actually is the more important part, I think, to me, and the one that was eye opening. Before he goes into the four agreements, he talks about how we are domesticated as humans, how we everything that we do, everything that we see, everything that our behaviors, every single thing is taught by somebody. It's not like we're born with this idea. So he calls it a dream. So is the dream, and your dream is how you see the world based on the things that you were taught. So that means everything, right? Like how we react to every single situation, how we dress, how we behave, what to say, what not to say, uh, and all those examples of that. How what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And he talks about how the most important thing you can do is to be yourself, to look at that thing and be like, does that align with who I am and how I want to live? Because he talks about how a lot of the people end up living in a nightmare, or I think he calls it hell, right? So he talks about how if you live for your authentic self and you learn that everything that you think is taught, that everything that you do was taught by you, then you can challenge it and question it, and then free yourself to be your authentic self, and the challenges that happen for not being able to be yourself. So he talks about once you have that awakening, once you have that awareness that everything is taught, then you can choose and you start living in heaven within life, within as living. So he separates the how people see, like think that hell is like after you die, but he's like, no, he makes the argument that because society is so fucked, we're living in hell right now, instead of when you die, because everybody is so concerned and everybody's living to those standards that no one even knows who the fuck's at, and they don't even know why. It's just that. So you try to fit in. You know, he goes from the whole process of being domesticated to like taught when you were little all the way to adult, and how you try to fit in to something that you don't agree, you know.
Yes, something that I questioned when I was reading that, and I'm like, okay, because it does talk about how, mm, we when we're born, right, like based on what our parents think, the society, the culture that we live in, are we are we're giving like all of these beliefs, and you then have to, or you don't have to, but if you want to live in this heaven, then you have to be who you are. And I was so conflicted by that, because if we have undergone, for me, 35 years of being domesticated, what does being my true self even mean? How do you even,
Hmm.
because everything that we are comes from those beliefs, those things that we are taught, how we are shaped. So how do I know when I'm being my true self and it's not just another part of the domestication? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I took it as like, and as you're saying it now, it's like you being okay with you being vulnerable is how I took it. Because we are always taught to follow the thing and to not show how we feel, even though we disagree with things, and to so I took it as like be vulnerable and show your pain, show that these things are not okay with you, and pursue that and have the courage to follow that thing within yourself that tells you something is not okay, even though you say this is how I supposed to behave, because I mean, I'm breaking and those things, those those barriers or those ideas, and the fact that I was the one that stayed at home and Celia worked. I'm breaking those ideas in the fact that I tell people to cry and I'm much more emotional. And the world tells me that I'm wrong and I don't get no engagement and I feel like an outsider because of that shit. But having the courage to be like, well, that doesn't, whatever the fuck I supposed to be following doesn't work for me. So having the courage and understanding that and pursuing what feels natural and then what feels right for me to do, and not fall into those things. But yeah, to some degree, you question what is it that is like, if it's anything like you said, is anything being authentic, or is it something that I feel from there? But I think it's just if it feels authentic, it's what would be what you pursue, because if you think about it, like now with those things, I fucking applaud the weird fucking people, the ones that are fucking weird. Like I think of how cool it is to be a punk fucking rocker in high school. Like how cool it is to be a fucking hardcore ass fucking nerd that just into comic books or does his own shit that doesn't give a fuck.
Hmm.
Because they don't we saw them in high school as outsiders, but they had the courage to not give a fuck and be themselves. And we
Yeah.
all fucking somehow try to fit into this shit to try to be more popular or dressed or behave a certain way or even hid who we truly were to try to fucking fit into that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
those are examples of how simple things of like being yourself. Because it's so simple and shamed and frowned upon to go against the current, even politically, even social with anything like that, right? It's so common, like everybody, even politically, because these are the times you fit into this. Hey, you either a fucking Republican or you're a Democrat, and you're that. And I'm like, I'm neither of them. Like, all of y'all can go fuck yourselves. I have this different idea of this shit, but that also takes courage, and it takes you being vulnerable enough to be seen as a fucking outsider and not care about it. It's just for me. It just went to being okay with who you are, because a lot of the times we're not allowed to be who we are. And that's something that I talked about yesterday with my client is, you're so hard on yourself because you were not allowed to feel pain. You were not allowed to feel sadness, to feel anger. And then you're so hard on yourself because you're not really being your authentic self, which goes back to the same shit. you know the power that we have, and once we live our authentic selves and living those emotions, or saying this is not okay, this hurts, this bothers me, this shit. I think having the courage to do it and being vulnerable enough to go against the current and to be yourself authentically, that's what I took from it. I guess removing the things of like, because I'm a man, I supposed to behave like this. No, fuck that. Oh, because I have, I don't know, because this is my skin tone, I supposed to behave like this. Because this is my sexuality, I supposed to behave like this. And being able to courage to be like, nah, fuck that. I'm unique, and I don't like fitting into those things, and going from there.
I'm going to play devil's advocate today. Now that I disagree with you or any of this, just disclaimer, like I agree with it all.
Hmm.
I think that the part that I'm having trouble with is how do you reconcile or how do you work around people or situations where they claim that they are being themselves.
Hmm.
um how do I say this? in general terms, per se, if we're talking about a narcissistic person, as
Hmm.
what we in society know as a narcissistic person, and that person then says, I am being my authentic self, how is that something that is okay?
Hmm. Well, that's we get into that question and that thing of like the lack of then of self knowledge, right? Because you're not at that moment, you're not being yourself, even though you could believe it.
But how
I
do you
would
know?
think I think the rest of the four agreements will then tell you how everything has impacted you, right? How everything has impacted you and shape you in that way, like by paying attention to, because that idea came from somewhere, right? The way you behave, the way that you think you're right, and all that stuff came from somewhere. So then, by learning that it didn't come from you, then you're more open to be more kind and more loving to the stuff. But yes, it's the same. You're asking the same question that I've been asking of that thing at the same time, because you are being yourself and what you think so far into being yourself is. But then there's like, well, from from like being in another perspective, well, yes, that's who you are now, but why? Why you're so passionate about certain things? Why is this that? Why are you the way you are right now? And I think once you ask yourself that question, it's like, oh, I think you're much more open to change, much more open to vulnerability, much more open to not being so attached to your identity. Just is so fluid because it's
Mm,
changing all the time.
okay, thank you. I was just thinking, as like you were reading, I was thinking about the person we had the conversation about the last time we spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I'm like, I feel that if we were to share this with this human, like all of these agreements, that um, they would they would argue, right? Like, well, this is my authentic self. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, being
It just goes back to drilling the same fucking thing of like, at this, like, I have the awareness to know that I don't know shit. I have the awareness to know that my identity and who I am is constantly changing, and I look for that cycle of continuous growth. So I don't attach myself to this is who I am. Like, this is who I am today. Like, yeah, this is who I am today, but I know that like I have, there's room for growth, there's room for change, there's always something that's going to happen in my life, something that I'm going to experience where it allows me to grow. So therefore I'm not so attached to that part, but it's because of that awareness that I have now. um just to go to, oh, you lost me a little bit.
wait,
um
yeah, I lost you for
you
a
hear me?
minute. I don't know. Now I
Yeah,
can.
you
Was
hear
that
me now?
you?
Okay,
Kind
I
of.
think it was
Wait.
me.
Okay.
We're back. Yeah, so even to that idea now, I saw the somehow the tattoo of the butterfly with the skull in between it. I don't know if you've seen that tattoo before. So it's like a butterfly and it has a skull within the design of the butterfly. And I looked it up because it was so popular, and it signifies the cycle of life and death, the beauty that life and death provide. So then I was like, oh, now I'm thinking about that getting tattooed, because now I see myself as a constant cycle of dying and reborn again with a new perspective and a new way to see the world and new beauty to me and to the world, you know? So the constant thing of that old me dying and being reborn as part of life, and continuing to do that over and over and over and over, and having that cycle, to be like, something needs to die from something to for something more beautiful for to grow within me, something needs to go away and shit.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So then, as you're saying that, part of being the authentic self is maybe this acceptance that the box that we were put into is not permanent, that we're constantly changing, we're evolving beings, and being okay. I almost think of it as like a river, right? Of but kind of being like water.
Yeah.
Your water is malleable. It changes, it adapts, and it's constantly doing
Mhm.
that. Mm. Okay.
Yeah. That's I've asked myself that when I'm trying to force something, are you being like water, or are you trying to fucking force the thing? Like I can't. When I'm struggling, that's a thing that I ask myself: are you being like water? Are you just going with the flow, or are you trying to stop and contain something, or are you just not letting it go? Like I literally had those thoughts before that
Mm.
remind me to let go, remind me to allow myself to change, because that's the problem, right? At the same time, with what he's talking about in this dream, that we try to belong and we identify ourselves with something that we don't even know why,
Hmm.
right? That's the thing that you were asking, like that we don't even know why we identify ourselves with something. And I think a strong sense of identity is the enemy of growth. You can't grow when you identify yourself so strongly as something. You can't. You're incapable of seeing that because you're so passionate about this fucking thing, and you identify yourself with this thing so hard that you're incapable of seeing things. It's hard for you to do that. You can I don't think you can have such strong identity and be open-minded at the same time. It's very hard, I would think, for most things also, obviously,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
I
why that's my pursuit again of the science thing and all that stuff, and to have no question to the shit, because that's why I love mental health, because it's true. It's just fucking true. There's no woo woo shit. There's no imagination. There's no nothing. This is how the fuck the mind works. This is the things that work to help you. This is how your mind is fucked because of this, and that. But
Where is it?
I could be
Um,
wrong.
yeah, that part of always, but we could be wrong. Um,
Yeah, literally, that's what makes the world of a difference, right? This is how I
I
feel now. I today, as an example, I feel that you can't have such strong identity and be open minded at the same time. But who knows what the fuck will happen tomorrow? Who knows what'll change my mind? Who knows if there's more of a balance?
yes,
And that is what it's talking about. Not being able to fit into that box, and being brave and strong enough and
I
vulnerable to do that.
I went to a museum when I was in Mexico,
Hmm.
and I walked into like this. ¿Cómo se llama una exposición? I don't know how to say that in English, but like
Yeah, but you will see it at a museum, like an exhibit. There you go.
an exhibit. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And it it was finding new definitions to words. They did it through different, I think like 5 different workshops where I don't know who the people were, but they did like name them or whatever. But so they would put the word, and then they would come up with like different, like new meanings for the word. And one
Hmm.
of them is identidad. And the way they defined it was verdad cambiante. And right
Hmm.
now that you're talking about it, it resonated even more with me. Um, like identity is ever changing truth. Is that how you would translate it? Um,
Hmm.
and so like right now that you're, and the thing is that it did is this, the same word, but it would have different definitions. They would um, it was different definitions for the same word. Another one that they said about for identity is recognizing your home.
Hmm.
Um, but right now, as you were talking about it, it made me think about all of all of these things. Um,
Hmm.
They also define disobedience as destruction of the limits of the boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah. And I just keep thinking of this because I just had this conversation, like I said, with my client yesterday, and him struggling to allow himself to live, to experience pain, to experience sadness, to experience anger. That's and he wants to break out of that, right? So he's struggling. He wants to break out of that, but like he's judging himself so hard because of the identity that he created, that his parents or whoever raised him, everything created for himself, not to allow to be able to feel those things. So then he's judging himself. He's trying to fit in into this fucking box of like, I'm not supposed to feel pain. It's not okay for me to be this angry. It's not okay for me this shit. So you're trying to put yourself in the fucking box that they built for you, and your body and naturally is like, hey, motherfucker, get the fuck out of here. So you're doing it opposite by trying to constrain it,
mm-hmm.
you know. So
Yeah,
being having that ability to just, step outside of that is rewarding, and it's going to be rewarding for him, and it's going to give him peace to no longer have to fit in into the idea of how emotions are supposed to be, you know understood or managed or treated as they come up. You
yeah,
no longer fitting into that box, so then you're freeing yourself from that, and it'll
mm-hmm.
make more sense once we get into the actual agreements. um So, like I was saying, the first one now, that was the whole part about the dream. Then the first one is be impeccable with your word. So, impeccable means without sin. So, try to. He talks about you have the power to create love, to create happiness, to create abundance, and you also have the power to create pain, to create harm, to create destruction within your words.
With your words, yes.
Yeah, with your words. So that means, and I was remembering myself and how I used to feel and how I used to talk to myself versus how I do now, and the importance of that, right? Because I know some people, based on another amazing book, the Power of Now, people live their entire life not knowing the narrative that goes in their head, the way that they talk to themselves. They just are on autopilot, and they don't know how they do that. So then that's what he's getting at, and that's what he's teaching from my perspective and my how I see it, is letting you know the power that the things that you tell yourself, how they affect you. So not only being impeccable with what you tell other people, because you have the power of um, creating love or creating destruction, but within yourself. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
often do you blame yourself? How often do you talk shit to yourself to be like, oh, this is not okay, or you're a fucking loser, or see, things are never gonna go good for you. This is why you always struggle, or things are always gonna go bad, or whatever. So then that hurts you and that damages you versus thinking differently. Like, I can definitely tell you that I've gotten to learn to love myself and to be more at peace with myself because of the words that I get back from other people, right? Like the my group therapist, my therapist, you, my wife, my friends, other people that I've done there that are able to teach me to change or to understand myself through those words is so powerful to that. I see it now that I think I'm doing it properly with the people around me, of how they instantly connect. Like, it just feels like the way that I'm showing and spreading love now, I'm getting it back, and you just see the connection, and you feel the peace, and you feel the relief in their bodies, and they're less tense, and they're all that because of how I'm communicating. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
the power of the positive, or sharing and spreading love.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I think the example that I wrote that on my notes was that one, that I said it before, that one classmate that was like, oh, you're not, I asked for something about college, and it's like, and he laughs, he's like, you ain't going to fucking college. And then a few other people laugh, and I took that in, and as he talks about, like, here, I agreed with what somebody said about me. So then now, because of that created all those, that's such a simple statement, created such damage within me.
Mm.
I believed and I accepted that because all that, and also because maybe my grades weren't as good. Like, yeah, what the fuck am I talking about? I ain't going to college. I
Yeah.
ain't gonna do that. So how powerful I took that in. Um, and that's how powerful things can be. One more example that I experienced that I don't think you'll mind sharing. My dad told me that his dad told him that he was just a worker, that he didn't have the mind to be smart. His job was to just be a worker. So he identifies with that. And he's identified with that his entire life because that's what they told him he was. He took the word and agreed with it and then
Mhm.
made that his identity because he believed what somebody else told him. And then I like he thinks like, yeah, I'm not smart. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? You're able to show up to an empty fucking lot and within your brain, without ever picking up a piece of fucking paper or a structure, you can build an entire house just with the knowledge that you have here. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like that's amazing, you
Mhm.
know. But he's identified with that, so then he sees limits within himself and puts that and just be like, well, shit could be going bad, or shit is doesn't go as good, or I can't manage money, or I can't grow more the business because I don't have the ability to do that. And to this day he still kind of believes it, you know, that that's where his limit is, so he identifies with that because he talks about, he calls them agreements.
Mhm.
He
Yeah, I was gonna tell you. I'm like, maybe we should talk about the
Yeah,
that part. Yeah.
some agreements because you have a choice whether you agree with it or not, you know, whether agree with what you tell yourself or not. Like when I am struggling, I have fucking dark ass fucking thoughts when I'm struggling and shit. But then I tell myself again, oh, cool, there you go. Like there you are. Like this is the shit, you know, and be like, oh, that's not me. Like it's okay for you to have thought that and have those things. So then I'm disagreeing and I'm saying
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
is not who you are. This is not you, you know? Like, yeah, this is coming from you, but you're not what you think. You're not what you're telling yourself. And if something negative is coming up, then ask yourself why, you know? But that's the first one, how powerful it is, how much power we have with what we say. He shares another example of there was a little girl, um, and
Mhm.
this is on the second one, but it talks about there's a little girl singing and her mom was tired from a long day of work, stress and shit like that, and she was just singing and singing and getting louder and having so much fun, the little girl, and her mom's like, can you be quiet, you have such an ugly voice, because she was tired. So then she agreed with that and never sang again, and even became shy and became hard for her to speak out because she was just so endowed with her voice, right? This is a little bit more on the second agreement, but it still goes with the same shit of like how powerful it is, how we can make someone's day or we can ruin someone's day with just the
Not
word.
just a day,
Yeah, I mean,
whole
and
fucking life
yeah, yeah,
with just one statement.
hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. That's how powerful it is, and that's how we run. That's the we have to pay attention to what our inner voice is and how it communicates and what we're telling ourselves, because that's the dictator of our life,
Hmm.
right?
And like you said, like the first step would be to even become aware of what our inner dialogue is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, my mom, I am convinced that my mom also has ADD. Um, so but all, I don't know about my baby sister, but at least my mom, my middle sister, and myself, we are super clumsy. Like we will drop everything, like things will fall off our hands, blah blah blah. And every time, almost every time, my mom drops something, she'll say something like, "Ay qué pendeja," "Ay qué mensa." Like it was so instant, and I would also do that. I would
Mm-hmm.
also do that, where I would drop something I'm like, "Ay, estás bien pendeja," right? Like constantly doing that, but we weren't aware of that. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I started doing this healing stuff that then I became aware of like, holy shit, like nos hablamos bien feo, like to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then I now stop my mom whenever she'll say that. Like I won't be mean about it, but I'll be like, "What did you say?" And then she'll be like, the first times that would do it, I'm like, ¿Qué dijiste? I would say something like, "Try again," or "Inténtalo otra vez." And she'd be like, "What?" I'm like, "What did you say?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "What did you just say right now?" She's like, "Nothing. I didn't say anything." I'm like, "No, no, no. Right now that you dropped the thing, what did you say?" She's like, "Nothing. I just dropped it." And I'm like, You didn't realize that you called yourself Menga?" And she's like, "Ah, ¿y qué tiene?" And I'm like, "Mom, this is how you're talking to yourself." I'm like, "So let's try that again." And at first she was like, because she would be so frustrated. She's like, "I don't have time for your shit," right? Um, but the more and more I would do it, and now it's like a joking thing, right? When she'll still do it from time to time, she'll be like,
Hmm.
"Ah, pendeja," and I'll be like, "Try again." And she laughs. She's like, "Ay, se me tiró the whatever," right?
Hmm.
So, but it is something that she wasn't even aware that she was saying.
Yeah.
It just like became so automatic. And then when I'd be like,
Yeah.
"What did you say?" She's like, "I didn't say anything." What are you talking about? I'm like, just call yourself a dumbass. What do you mean you didn't say anything? But she wouldn't. She would not be aware. So we switched it. I don't know how the fuck it happened, but uh, every time we drop something, because my sister gets really angry at herself too when she drops something. So we came up with, if something falls and it breaks, spills, whatever, we start singing the song, uh, 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 another one bites the dust, and
Mm.
we all just like start laughing. But it's one way that we have like kind of switched those words from being like, "You're a dumbass, that's stupida, that's pendeja," to then just being like, something fell, and it is what it fucking is. But it
Hmm.
is super, just how automatic we go through life talking to ourselves with the very mean voices without us even being aware of it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the thing that when I went to therapy and I learned that part of it and how our thoughts and our behaviors and our emotions run the shit, I was like, hijo de su perra madre. Like that's the shit. Literally, I'm here sitting recording because of that thought. That I was like, what the fuck? I was never aware of my inner voice and how it affected me and how it shaped every aspect of my life, you
Hmm.
know? So now that's the reason why when I had that thought of like, I want to dedicate myself to helping people and I'll make sure not to forget this shit, which is the reason why I'm here today. Like I said, it was because of that to realize, damn, that's crazy how powerful that is. And that literally that inner voice like runs your life. It runs your life. It dictates however you see everything and how you deal with every emotion, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the first one. He explains it like a little bit. I guess he tries to make sense of it. He calls it like black magic or
Hmm.
white magic, something like that. That's what he calls it. Um, but it's just that, right? Be careful and try to always be impeccable. So talk without sin or try not to talk negatively to yourself or to anyone, you know, because we
Yeah.
already talked about the impact that those things have. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. What somebody tells you is a reflection of themselves and not you,
Oh,
right?
that
So
is so
that's
hard.
mhm, yeah. It's so hard to it's so hard to understand and so hard to agree. So hard to do that because we take that criticism so hardly, right? So harshly within ourselves. Um, so yes, it's based on their own beliefs, their own emotions, their own experiences, and their own insecurities, right? I always give the example of getting cut off on the freeway. If someone cuts you off on the freeway and you fucking go off on them and you yell at them and you call them shit, you're doing that because you have shit within yourself. You know, you're in a bad mood because some other reason.
Were
Because
you in the
there's
car with
times
me yesterday?
when because when somebody cuts you off and you're not in a bad mood and you're singing and you shit, like you don't give a fuck. You know, you just continue by your way. Like you maybe notice it and you don't react nowhere, but that has to do with you, you know.
Hmm.
Um yeah, talking about the same thing is just like that's something that I paid attention to and tried to understand too, because like you said, it's very hard. Understand that when somebody pisses you off, It's about you and it's not about them, you know. It's not about what they said. It's something within yourself. They touched an insecurity, something bothers you or something from there, you know. um it also reminded me of the quote, like, hurt people, right?
Mhm.
So pretty much what how I understood it is, they're don't take anything personally, because those people are reacting based on what they think of the situation, or defending themselves from what they felt if you insulted them or whatever it is. So it has nothing to do with you. They're reacting, you know, based on their own experience. It's not the
Yeah.
actual, like, it's not a fact. It's not the truth that if I think somebody hurt me, therefore I yell at them. That's not whatever, however I'm interpreting it, that makes me, be like, be not say the not being impeccable with the word, is because of I'm perceiving something. It's not because of the actual reality or how you meant it or whatever, you know.
Say that one more time.
Like, you don't hurt, like, it's not the when because I can get upset at somebody else's behavior that then causes me to say something to them. That reaction of me insulting you has to do with what I think you did to me, how
Yes.
I feel you
Okay.
did it. It has
Yes. Yes.
nothing to do with what the other person actually
Yes.
meant. The
Yeah.
other that's not the reality of it. That's your reality. And then you
Hmm.
have to heal and look within yourself and experience and ask yourself why this shit is so painful, to the fact that I have to yell at somebody.
Yeah.
But it's not the actual truth. It's not
Yes.
the intention of it. Just jumping because it's always still protecting yourself, right?
Yes. Sorry, that took me a little bit
No worries.
to gather.
Um, yeah. So then, I just wrote that the example again, of the things that you take on, and when you take them personally, they become, you agree to them because somebody told you, and you make them your identity, and how harmful that could be again, right? That's the same thing that I talked about my dad.
Yeah.
Or like my brother, my middle brother, German. He talks about now how he was the middle child and he was the wild one and he was the loud one, and he would actively, somehow, even back then, have the knowledge to be like, oh, I'm supposed to be the crazy one, well then fuck it then, and then I would act out because I'm supposed to be the loud, crazy, fucking, the one
Hmm.
that's outrageous and shit like that. I'm supposed to be that person. So he took that identity, and then that's how he lived, that's how he thought about himself, and the suffering that it came from them not being able to be the quiet one, not being able to be the one from that, or also the pain also that we had within ourselves, where I was perceived as the calm. Like, there was somebody in my family that at some point at 30 years old, maybe, or 32 years old, told me, it's like, oh, you'd never get angry, huh? You always been so quiet and so calm. And then, like, German laughed at me, like, yeah, that's what they think about you. Like, little do they know this shit, and how passionate you are and how often you fucking get angry and the shit like that. But it's that idea, right? So then you label him with something and you label me with something else, and then he's hurt because he's not allowed to then be the calm thing. He has to fit in into this, but he didn't know how painful that was for him. So taking that in,
Hmm.
every yeah, every time somebody, is just to remember yourself not to agree to what anybody says, and to be like, well, that's based on your perspective. And it's definitely hard to do, and something that I still struggle with. And I'm still looking to remind myself of that part. I am not who they think I am. I know who I am. And as long as I feel and I understand and I'm secure with who and with my belief of who I am, then whatever they say or feel, like, it doesn't even matter. Understand that they're doing it from their perspective, without having, it's usually is just the fucking judging part, right? You don't really
Yeah.
know the full story. You don't know the truth. You're reacting based on the limited information you have, and then you fucking have that anger towards me. And then also, what I also wanted to talk about, with not believing, or not taking things personally. Then there's the opposite, where they gas you up. Yo, you're so fucking pretty. You're so beautiful. You're the shit. Like you're fucking shit flowers and all those things. And how that also fucks you up. And
That's me.
you see this. I don't want to be a celebrity, and I don't want to be rich because of that. I literally don't. I don't want to be fucking wealthy because of that shit. Because I don't know how the fuck I can stop myself from not being treated like I'm the shit. Because imagine what it's like to be a celebrity and having no one tell you no, and everybody caters to your every single fucking need that you could ever think of. If you fucking sneeze, somebody dives to get you a fucking thing.
P. Diddy.
Yeah, they dive to give you the tissue. You say that you're thirsty and like you get fucking all this things of fucking water that you could imagine because they gas you up and you lose yourself within that thing in there. So it's both ways. You know. You have to be sure of who you are, and like I guess what that one is accepting your flaws and remembering that you're flawed, no matter how much powerful or successful you can be, and you just remind yourself again, I am fucking human. I'm no better than other people. I'm that. It makes no difference, no matter how many of this fucking idiots tell me this.
I don't
And I
know.
have to go ahead,
Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
and I have to shout out. I listened to the radio personality. Obviously, the people mostly that know Spanish will know him, but I listened to Don Cheto, right? And
You listen to Don Cheto?
he had a I listen to him like every time I'm editing. So then I love him because he has that awareness, and he doesn't even record with this costume on as the old guy. He lives a life outside of it where he's just himself. I never even knew his name, but he is aware, and he says que no me coma la fama, que no me coma the character. So he doesn't wear his shit outside of only where he has to. He's just a random. Like he lives in Long Beach, so I probably might have ran into him somewhere. Had no idea that it was him because he's smart enough and humble enough to understand if this is a character. This is a fucking character, and if I get consumed by the character, I will become P Diddy. I'm just a human. I'm just myself. This is just what I do for work and a character that I play. And I have to be able to separate it. And I have to be able to still live my normal, humble fucking life and not fucking walk around like saying that I'm the character because of the dangers of how all that shit can get to your head and you lose yourself to the character. He's a genius. He's a genius. I most people listen to him because of the funny stuff that he does, but he said in one of the episodes where they were interviewing him how he reads so much, and he reads, he's so smart, he reads philosophical books and all kinds of shit, and then he twisted and he makes it about el señor del rancho que comía frijoles y la chingada, and he tells you the story of this philosophical things and these things of growth, and he's able to pass that information to people, and he has the stories, and he just makes you relate to them because he says it wasn't fucking Socrates, era el viejito del que vivía allá in the fucking house and the thing, and he has this beliefs and the shit so that our people can understand it, you know?
I
So
didn't know that.
he's super, super smart. Yes, there's some other things like I think he has to, I don't want to go into much, but he has to he has to get into character and he has to do the radio stuff, and a lot of the things is very like mild and shit like that, but I love how he's able to walk the line between both, how he's educating while entertaining and being silly and goofy, and there's like a fine line that they walk in there. But yes, that's the example of how you can look at Diddy, look at any motherfucking millionaire, billionaire, any celebrity, and that's what the fuck you not want to do. You don't want to be treated like that because you forget who you are and you forget that you're just human, and now the character is leading your fucking life. And those are the
Yeah.
dangers of listening to people that you're the shit in every possible way.
Dice mi mamá, no sé dónde sacó ese dicho, pero dice, hasta la mujer más bonita hace su pedacito de caquita.
Yeah. Everybody, we're all fucking humans at the end of the day, but you can get up in the character. Now the next one that's the second one, right? So don't take shit personally from anything that anybody tells you. It's more about them than it is about you. And if something hurts, then you got to ask yourself, why does this hurt? Because you're the one that's in pain. You're reacting with anger, you're fighting back because you're in pain. So you have to ask yourself, why is this painful to me? It's not about them. But anybody pisses you off, it's not about them. They didn't piss you off. You are.
I got pissed off.
Yeah, I got pissed off. You have to ask yourself why. So yes, the third agreement, which is something I think is so fucking powerful, and it goes with the other ones. Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. It's very straightforward. Don't make assumptions.
It's kind of like we were saying, don't knit a sweater and not
Yeah,
other. So
yeah,
stop knitting sweaters.
yeah. Right? Because you're interpreting other people's actions, other people's feelings, other people's motives based on your perspective, and then you're not actually asking. You're not actually getting to know. You're assuming. So how often do we assume? Um, I have the examples here of like someone someone doesn't call us back.
They hate us.
They're- yeah, they can hate us. They don't like us. They don't want to talk to me. Or
Yes.
from other people in my life, something happened. So, oh my God, something fucking happened. They died. They got in a car accident. Something fucking happened. Oh my God, there's something there. So then the fucking assumption of something that's not real takes like your once again your inner voice and how you talk to yourself leads you into fucking feelings that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
It leads you to anger. It leads you to frustration. It leads you to depression. It leads you to anxiety. It leads you to shit on something that you don't even know if it's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When
Mm-hmm.
someone doesn't, I just go back to the simple one. If someone doesn't call, they're mad at me. They don't like me. They're hurt. They're upset. Whatever it is, and
Mm-hmm.
then you assume you those are all assumptions. That's not real. That's not reality. That's not the truth. And getting past that, I think, makes a world of a difference. Understanding and communicating clearly and directly, that makes the world of a difference. It's so easy to live in a world where you just communicate directly.
Yeah. I had this situation. um, there. I went to Mexico this past week, and I usually stay with some people, and this time
Hmm.
around I didn't,
Hmm.
because another person offered their house to so I can stay with them, and I was like, I never stay with them. Let me also give them some of my time, right? Like that was my reasoning.
Hmm.
And then when I told the other people, I was like, hey, I'm not going to stay with you this time around. Um, like I told them through message, and neither one of them replied because it's a couple, and neither one of them replied. And I was like, ooh, they're mad. That was my assumption, but my
Hmm.
assumption was actually right. They were mad at me. So when I got over there, we had a big ass conversation around it, of like both of them felt that they didn't feel appreciated, that I didn't, that they weren't doing something right, that they weren't doing enough, that whatever they had to offer wasn't good enough for me.
So they
And
assumed.
yes, they were assuming so much shit. But you know what?
Perfect.
Like the without even knowing it, I was I was putting the second agreement into play, because some of the things that um it's a heterosexual couple. So one of the things that the guy was telling me was, you're very selfish. Like he said that repeatedly in the conversation. It's like, you're super selfish. Like that is very selfish. And um but not once did I get um like defensive about it. Like in my head, as he was telling me, like that, this part of like, I don't agree with that, right? Like that is one of the things I'm like, I don't agree with that. But
Hmm.
I wasn't saying it necessarily. I was just in my head, I'm like, I don't think I'm being selfish,
Hmm.
and this has something to do with him. Something's going on with him, and he needs to just get that out of his chest. Just let him talk, let him tell you whatever it is that he needs to say. This has nothing to do with me. And like he just kept going at it. And I think his wife at some point, like, even noticed that, like, because he was bashing me. Um But I think it was more of like his pain that came up of like, how dare you not not choose me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like even the girl was like, wait, hold on, let me balance this out. Like she like literally said that, let me balance this out, because like almost like, let me show you what the perspective maybe that Norma is trying to do, right? Because if she felt it, right, of
Mm-hmm.
like him being harsh to me, but not once did I take it as like, oh, like, yes, I'm being selfish, or like, how dare he think I'm selfish. I was just like, he needs to get it off his chest and let him get it. Let him get it out, and we'll go from there. And even when I told another friend of, oh, this is kind of what happened, and he started being mean about the other person. It's like, oh my god, what's wrong with him? And I'm like, no, it's okay. He needed to let that out. That's all right. That is all
Mm-hmm.
right. I didn't take offense in it. He just, that's something that he needed to say. um but is this part of one, the making assumptions hurts so many relationships. And obviously we're also guilty of that shit. Like I make assumptions all the fucking time in my head. But the part of not taking it personally does make such a big difference, because if somebody's calling you selfish constantly, like at some point you're gonna be like, fuck you, I'm leaving. But in that moment, I'm like, this has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna let him write it out. We're
Mm-hmm.
able to resolve it. We love each other again, but but the part of the making assumptions, because that's how the whole conflict started.
Yeah, you literally went through the scenario of all of the agreements so far.
Hmm.
So he started telling himself negative shit about you, not impeccable with your word, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Then he started believing the negative things, right? Even though they were coming from him, or maybe he shared it with his wife, you started believing what you were telling yourself, and you made an agreement that this was true. And then you made a decision based on that assumption of the belief that what you were feeling was true, and that you were selfish for not taking that into consideration or whatever, not knowing that in actuality you were just saying, okay, I'm gonna be kind and I'm gonna spend some time with another fucking human, you know. And that's the decision of why, because I feel like it, because I need to, because this person's struggling something. So like you never know the thing. And that's, I think, as of today, I think that that's the part that happens all the time.
Hmm.
We hurt some people not by wanting to hurt them, you know. And that's the crazy shit, that we just take on the pain and we just behave and respond based on that pain, not taking our time to ask, well, what was the intention, or what was the reason, before we jump on and do that. And I used to do that myself too, a lot back in the day. Like we used to get mad with Sally, and it was just, and I would fucking go into some, ya andaba like divorciado, la chingada, and all these fucking things. Every time we're just getting mad over some shit, you know? Like my mind was already gone, like fucking far gone into the shit, you know? And I think because I caught myself and I learned that, I don't think, I think it's already been more than close to 2 years since we had a big fucking argument that I tell you, like, oh, this is a big fucking, it's been so long, because most of the time it was that shit that was fucking bringing back and creating more of the fucking argument. It was creating more feelings of sadness, of anger, or resentment on the shit, on the imaginary shit, not even what actually had happened, you know? So it's so powerful to that. And yeah, so that one, just ask yourself, do I know the fucking truth, or am I just making an assumption?
Hmm.
When somebody tells you something right there, um, about two other people, I try to tell people, well, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but that's just that perspective, right? We need to know the other perspective so you get a more balanced idea of what, and then eventually you'll come to a resolution, or you come to figure out what the truth is somewhere in the middle. Because
Yep.
that's what makes it hard. I think that's what makes things hard is that they're complicated, and it's not your fault and it's not my fault. It's both our fault. Usually.
Responsibility. Let's
Yeah.
use responsibility.
Yeah.
Because even fault feels like that it has like a tint of
A negative.
judgment in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So responsibility.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, we're
actually
both.
one of the things that I highlighted from, I think it's the 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 second agreement.
Hmm.
Let me see. Uh, um, no, it might be from the first one, um, but that part of responsibility is super
Yeah.
important. Fuck, I'm not gonna be able to
I
find
wrote a,
it.
I'll read a quote while you're looking for it. Um, from the summary that I saw, it says Ruiz advises asking questions and seeking clarity instead of assuming. By openly expressing our thoughts, feelings, and needs, we prevent misunderstandings and ensure others have the information they need to respond authentically. This creates a foundation for healthy, transparent relationships. And we get into the other shit, right? That's what made me think about. It's hard to not make assumptions and to communicate directly because we have to be vulnerable with our pain. It's
Oof.
easier to assume, it's easier to defend ourselves, it's easier to keep a distance, it's easier to blame some other people because we've also
Yes.
been taught not to be vulnerable.
Yes.
So, being able to communicate directly requires a great deal of vulnerability at the same time.
Vulnerability. Mm-hmm.
And if
Yes.
you don't have that, and if you can't do that, then, you know, that becomes a problem because you're just living under the assumptions of that.
Yes.
You don't allow
The
yourself.
quote.
You're not even giving yourself the opportunity to not make assumptions because it's so
Mm,
painful. Because we don't. I don't blame you, and I don't judge you for those people that you've been hurt so many times when you have been vulnerable that you're like, fuck it, I'm not gonna be vulnerable anymore. You know. So I don't blame you for that. But then again, how one thing leads to more damage and more
yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
You protect yourself. You think you're protecting yourself by not being vulnerable, and in reality, you're hurting yourself a lot more because the cycle fucking continues.
Yes. One of the things that I highlighted. I'm reading it in Spanish.
Okay.
I um, but within the first agreement is un pecado es cualquier cosa que haces que va contra ti. Right, like a sin is anything you do that goes against you.
Mm-hmm.
um in this part, it is this part of like being authentic, but that also comes with a great deal of responsibility, right? Because then it says being impeccable is not going against yourself. When you are impeccable, you assume the responsibility of your actions without judgment, without guilt tripping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, but a lot of us don't have that capacity
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take responsibility for what we say. Like this person, right? It was easier for him to say like I was selfish than to assume the responsibility of when you don't share this space with me, this is what's going on for me. This is my like the wound, my agreement that got like stirred up. But it's way easier to just say this is a
Yeah.
you thing rather than it's a me thing, because that
Yeah.
comes with responsibility.
Yeah. Definitely. That's something that I still struggle with. Honestly, um, because I'm so hard on myself again, and perfection or nothing. That very black and white idea of myself. So it's hard for me to I'm learning to live within the gray areas, and obviously that's been the key for my growth of being able to take responsibility and then humble myself enough to know that you know I'm human and I'm gonna hurt people. I'm gonna make mistakes, even though if that wasn't my intention and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to accept it. But I do have that ability. I think it just takes some time from hearing it the first time to a couple times, and then I'm like, fuck, well, is it really? Did I really do it? And then I become more open minded to where I'm willing to accept the responsibility and the role that I played in the situation, and realizing how I was wrong in that stuff. But it's very hard. It's still very hard for me to do that.
Yeah.
We'll
It
talk about
is.
it in the other episode for that stuff. Um, yeah, so just the practice is asking yourself, am I making an assumption? Do I know for a fact that this is true? Do I know for a fact that this is how this person feels? Or am I assuming? Am I guessing? And
Yeah.
what service is the guessing doing. That's not doing anything. It all comes to the same thing of developing that awareness, developing that awareness of your own thoughts and what's happening. Creating, I think I actually wrote it down too in my notes, is creating a gap, creating a space between what you feel and what you think, and asking yourself that, being mindful of your what's happening in your head, of the story that you're telling yourself, being able to take a step back and be like, oh, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Because of this. Okay, I'm angry because of this. Is this true? Like, do I know for a fact that this person meant it like this? Do I know for a fact that this person is doing this? Or am I guessing? And then also the other part of it, well, why am I in pain? Why is this so hurtful for that stuff, you know? It takes a
Hmm.
whole thing of awareness, and maybe we can develop a topic on a podcast episode on just awareness itself. Like, how can we create awareness of ourselves, of our thoughts, of our behaviors,
That's
you know?
hard. I don't know that I would know that.
To me, it was just meditation, having the knowledge, like this, the CBT stuff, um, the cognitive behavioral therapy, like started that. Meditation helped out. So now I'm growing, like I told you, I'm growing in the approach because I see what you teach and your way of healing and helping people.
Hmm.
But I'm seeing that it's a complete thing. That CBT plays its role in the awakening, in the understanding of it. It might not be the end all be all, but I'm putting together a thought like that I had several times of like this. It's part of it. It belongs. It helps there. It belongs in that part of it. It might not be the one the thing that heals you, but maybe the thing that helps you have that awareness of your thoughts or that. So CBT and meditation for me like did it, to be aware of when I'm meditating, what are the thoughts that are coming in my mind. And when I'm actually very sad, stressed out, or whatever, I tell myself, okay, I need to meditate. You need to take some time off. You need to take some time off so that you're able to clear the mind and pay attention to what comes up, and then I'll be able to address whatever comes up when I do that. So I don't do it on the regular basis. I should, but that's how I personally um, got the awareness of it. The CVT and then the meditation actually work to understand myself and being able to take a step back and not understand and react or not react to whatever is happening to me in my mind or in actual literal fucking life.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's that one. And the last
Fine.
one is always do your best. Always do your very best in whatever it is that you're doing. But the part that the part that I that stood out to me is to be happy with whatever your best is, to accept whatever your best is. Because often, again, how often do we judge ourselves and we talk shit to ourselves for not achieving or not doing whatever we set out to be? And I was struggling with that as I was listening to that thing because of obviously my weight and my eating stuff and how much I talk shit to myself and whatever. And then I tell myself, well, today you did the best that you could. Every day you do the best that you can with whatever feeling, emotion, or baggage or whatever, or energy that you have within yourself because of where you're at. Every day is the best of myself. No
Mm,
matter what I achieve, no matter what I do, no matter what I don't do, I have to. I mean, I should try to learn that that is my best for the day, and not talk shit about it and not do it. You know. Now, when I want to change it, then what is affecting how this is my best? How can I start creating some change so that my best grows? But the key is not talking shit to myself, not being so hard on myself to be like, wow, you should, this is the, once again, fitting into the standard of super fucking, super that fucking hyper productivity that we're taught, you know?
yeah.
So this is my best now. I'm being okay with that stuff, you know? And that's making sense. And like, that made sense when I thought about it that way. Like, that's okay. And that's a form of showing myself love. If I like can do was go for a half a fucking walk. If I didn't feel like fasting, if I didn't do that shit, if I wasn't able to spend more time with the girls, like I did what I could today. This is when my body had enough. It did what it did, you know? And the other part of it was then like, okay, well then how can I increase that level of energy? How do I have growth? How do I am able to do more tomorrow, or how am I able to achieve more tomorrow? What things are playing into those things, So with time with the girls is explaining and exploring more within myself, and how do I find that time. Um, with the exercising will be like, well, am I sleeping properly? And I haven't. So then I have to sleep better to then be able to be more at peace, because that also, I learned, affects my ability to make proper decisions. So no sleep fucks me up in the way that I might make more decisions that don't benefit me. So then how do I start taking care of that and approaching that little by little? But that's
Oof.
very different than what I've been doing, than just shitting on myself and having this like all black and white idea of like, oh, you didn't do it. Like, no, you fucked up and you're a piece of shit today. And then you punish yourself by doing more tomorrow. And like, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. I have one little experience, but can we pause for 1 minute? My sister's about to leave and I want to say bye to her.
Yeah, sure, sure. Pause it.
Yeah.
And okay. And we're back.
Yeah. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank
No,
you
no
for that.
problem. Yeah. So,
Um, yeah, so again, I was in Mexico this past week, and as y'all know, I'm training for full marathon.
mhm,
And I didn't run. Only I ran twice out of the I was out there for a week. Uh and there was then this one day that I needed to run 21 miles. I, I was supposed to run the 21 miles and I didn't. I chose to stay in bed with my sister. Um but my brain kept telling me like you're being lazy, you're not doing this, like you're not doing enough.
mhm,
Um you're failing, like you're not going to be able to do your marathon. And I it's very ironic because one of the reasons that I didn't do it, the 21 miles, was that it 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 required me to get up at 5 in the morning very early because it was going to be like a 4-hour
mhm.
run. Um so I needed to start early so the sun wouldn't like hit me, right? But then I was like, no, but I'm so tired, like I just want to like sleep. But the thoughts of you're not getting up, you're not doing it, you're not training, you're failing, like you're going against what you said you would. I was awake from fucking 4 in the morning, just like those thoughts in my brain of like, ooh, bitch, you're not getting up. Like, you're not gonna go? Really? You're gonna fail like this? So it's like todo pasó, ni corrí, ni dormí.
Mm, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
It's It's a part
yes.
of it, and maybe that's what you needed, which is funny, right? You needed to rest, or it's
Yeah.
okay for you to do that. I have an example of how I made peace with it. So then,
Okay.
obviously, my dad sells carnitas on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
There was leftover carnitas on Monday, and I said, okay, I gotta fast. But then, since I woke up, I was like, fuck, there's carnitas. And I was like, no, don't fucking do it. Like talking shit to myself, do that. And then I realized, you know what? You stupid. Once again, I don't really talk to myself like this, but I think that's how I express it. But I was like, the fuck? There's nothing wrong with that. Like you don't get carnitas on a daily basis. So
Mhm.
no shit, it's okay for you to be wanting them and for you not to fast today because you have this. Like that's normal. They even talked about it in the book and the shit that like they're gonna come to situations and you shouldn't fight it because it does the opposite. Then when it helps you on those things. So then I was like, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna have them. I don't give a fuck. And I enjoyed it because why are you fighting again? What your body needs to do? Once again, I'm not accepting it in there.
Yeah.
But just like anything, I think there has to be a balance, right? Because that inner voice of wanting to work outside is fucking good for you. That's the shit
Yeah.
that I kept me going for forever when I was on top of all this. The fitness stuff. That's
Yeah.
the little shit that wouldn't let me fucking go. Like, fuck, okay, boy. I remember one time it was like 11 p.m. and I hadn't done it. And I was like, you haven't exercised today. So I was like, fuck. So literally, ya estaba acostado, literally I was falling asleep and like, oh, you didn't work out today. So I got up at 11 p.m. to make sure that I got my workout before midnight because I hadn't worked out that day. So the good things that come from those things, but the things that you lose at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding that
It's-
balance, I think, is very hard.
yeah,
It's
find the
very
balance and
fucking
finding that
difficult.
that middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, I wrote down a quote here. ¿Dónde está? ¿Dónde está? ¿Dónde está? Oh, Don Miguel Ruiz emphasizes that doing your best doesn't mean striving for perfection. Instead, it's about fully engaging in the present moment and doing the best that you can given your current situation. This helps prevent self judgment, regret, and burnout as we can feel satisfied with ourselves without pressuring ourselves for unrealistic standards, which is what we just talked about, right? Always do your best. It's about embracing each moment with full effort and self compassion without over extending or expecting perfection. By doing your best each day, we find contentment, build resilience, and grow steadily without self criticism or regret.
Mm. Have another one.
Mhm.
Doing your best um, means, I'm translating it, so bear with me. Doing your best means acting because you love doing things, not because you're expecting a recompensa. How do you say that?
And outcome, a return. Uh, Give me 1 second. ¿Cómo se dice recompensa en inglés?
Reward.
You beat it.
Recompense in English means to make amends for a loss or harm,
Nope.
or to reward someone for
Oh, there
their
you go.
efforts.
Yeah. You
Wow,
got it.
was I faster than your friend?
Well, you decided to think, and I went the slower way. But yeah, that makes sense too. You're not just doing it because you like it, and that's
Mhm.
true. And that's something that I'm gonna figure out. I know I will. I'm trying different things every day, and that's one thing that I work out of not having an angle and just learn to love it and just learn to see the good things about it on a daily basis and all that. Um, but yeah, so now my thing was let's give an example to summarize it. What does a fucking person's life look like when they are impeccable with their word, when they don't take things personally, when they don't assume, and when they do their very best?
What does that look like?
Yeah.
Yo no sé.
So imagine a person that is impeccable with their word, that is always being kind and gentle to themselves and nice to themselves and understanding to themselves, right? I don't think I'm nowhere near there, but
I was gonna
my
say, I'm like, do
growth,
you know anybody? Because
yeah,
shit.
but that's what we're striving to do, right? But and like I'm saying, that's been the key to my growth and how much gentle and how much nicer I am to myself, right? Not that, like I said, I have a long fucking way to go, and a lot of the time I'm very hard on myself, and I'm still doing. But imagine there's a person that is always treats you with love, always always is kind to you, always is respectful, gives you the time of day, gives themselves the time of day, are kind to themselves, are respectful and all that. Therefore, living the second one is completely gone, right? You're not taking things personal because that person that lives and is impeccable with the word doesn't give out any judgment, doesn't give out any hate, understands themselves, right?
Mm.
And is able to appreciate and value themselves to be like, what you say, I know it's about you and it's not about me because shit, look at me. Like I love myself. I'm happy with who I am. I don't judge myself for those things like you are judging me and what you're telling me. Then somebody does something to me and then I don't assume. I don't judge. I don't get ahead of time. I don't get ahead of myself. So I live in peace because I'm not assuming, because I'm just being relaxed. I'm taking things as they go.
Do you think doggos do that? Do you think that's why doggos exist? Because they're like that? Are you following the four agreements, Chanchito? What do you have to say about that? He says yes.
Yeah. I mean,
I,
it could be, right? You eliminate all that stuff. They're
I
quick to
think
forgive and
kids.
they have their love and everything, you know?
I think kids and animals, because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Chanchito and I have a hate love relationship. This motherfucker has bitten me 5, 6 times, like a lot.
Mhm.
He's like bit me a lot of times because I've also been really mean to him. But I think like even after all of our fights and stuff, like he still loves me. He
Yeah.
doesn't judge me and is able
Yeah.
to authentically show up. That is my other dog.
It's biting shit in the background. So yeah, I have some people that I know in my life that I think do that for me, and I think they do that for themselves because the understanding they have for themselves and they're living the life. I don't even think they know what they might or may not know what the four agreements are, but they're definitely living that life based on the four agreements of just understanding, of being like water because you're not judging, because you understand how complicated things is. You lead with love. You're more at peace with yourself. You don't judge. You don't talk shit to yourself. You don't talk shit to other people. Whenever people hurt you, you understand, that it's them and not you. You're not assuming, and you're kind to yourself and realizing that on the daily basis, you're doing the best with whatever you have that day. It just seems like oof, that's like the goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. And that's why I think this book is so powerful because if you just literally follow what it's telling you, your life changes for the better. You know,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of this book, and that's why I love it. And when I read it, I took it as a conclusion, as a summary of everything that I had to learn in therapy and conversations with friends and people in my healing journey. So I listened to this book the first time, I want to say 3 years ago, once I already had been 3 or 4 years into my after my panic attack that caused all that stuff. And I was like, holy shit, this is so powerful because this is literally another way of CBT, another way of self love, another way of understanding, another way of not judging and all the
Yeah.
bad things that I'm doing based on what, like he talks about the dream in the beginning. So definitely check it out. It's something that I always recommend to people all the time, especially everything is very powerful, but that part of realizing that you are who you are because of what other people told you, not necessarily because of who you think you are. And you didn't even
Yeah.
get a choice and you don't even do that. Like that's very powerful. And that's that awakening thing or that awareness raising thing that we were talking about at the same time. So definitely check it out. There's more books too. I think there's a fifth agreement and some other ones. I haven't read those. But go ahead and look at it. It's once again is the four agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Um, and yeah, same thing as always. If you have any questions, any feedback, anything, please let us know. mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com. If you want to be a guest, we're having some guests coming up too. But if you want to be a guest, let us know. Let us
Mm-hmm.
know how we're doing. Let us know if we could be of any help. She's once again, Norma's a therapist, and I'm doing my coaching thing. So we're here for you guys. And
Yes.
anything that you need, let us know. You're not alone, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
Alrighty. Thank you guys for listening
Thank
again. Will
you.
I talk for another 10 seconds because I can't find the video? All right, and bye. Peace. Love you.